Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tarnished Bronze, where we have part two of our Legion of Superheroes palette cleanser starring Omega and the trial and disintegration of Brainiac 5. And this is from 1979. Patrick, you were in the eye of the hurricane for this. This is one of your comics. Why don't you show everyone your
Yeah,
off-brand discount store
this is
version?
my original comic. It's still in decent shape. Uh the top staple is a little bit loose. I can't remember if I haven't bought a second one, a backup copy. I probably will because this was definitely one of my favorites. And here, yes, you'll see is the Whitman copy. I don't know why. Um, I have no idea. And I honestly can't remember if this was purchased off the shelf or if it came, at a flea market kind of a thing.
So we have a huge following of tech bros and one tech lady, Patrick. So what you want to get is you want to get in, slide into Patrick's DMs and offer him, hundreds of dollars for his peculiar
Oh,
version of.
it's not worth anything. And look, even the cover has got a little, yeah. And
Uh,
actually, when I picked it up, the cover's a lot looser than I remembered. So,
okay, so we'll give you a little discount. It'll only be $60 for you to buy
can you
that
imagine?
version, and you have taken all the advertisements out of it, right? So it's all
No,
just.
no, no, no. This one has the ads. I have come across since we started doing this, I have come across other ones that I did that to, but no, not this one.
All right, so that's enough comic financial chat for this channel. This is an issue that's brought to you by Jim Starlin, Paul Levitz, and Dave Hunt. Credited as Steve Apollo, this one has some ghost artistry. So Jim Starlin cracks a shit at the halfway through penciling and the editorial process of this issue. He checks out. Someone actually kind of finishes the issue. I'd be interested to see if Patrick can pick it. I couldn't really pick it, to be honest. I think it was maybe
Yeah.
just the inking stage. But this is part two of a pretty kind of off-piste characterization for some of our Legionnaires, but nonetheless, it has great Jim Starlin art. And look at this. This is like classic 40s, 50s comics, just like looking
Mhm.
forlorn out a window. This could be the Twilight Zone. This could be, Roy of the Rovers. This could be some sort of cowboy flick with a sad fellow who's a sheriff. Like, it just works, Patrick. Although that collar is something else for Karate Kid. I think it is there. They don't make collars like that anymore. Probably
Yeah,
for good reason.
I wonder if there's some sort of protective element to it. But yeah, Brainiac 5 is standing next to, I can only presume that maybe this is a prototype for an atom bomb.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I do.
But it is very romance comic, right? Those sort
Yeah.
of romance comics that Marvel did for a while.
Um, I've taken to standing and walking with my hands behind my back, which is apparently a sign of old age, but
I
also
was,
it just could be
well,
because
I could have told you that.
or I just could be real sad. I don't know. Just yeah, it's definitely a thing. And this is one of my favorite artists of all time is David Bowie, and he's got the man who sold the world. Well, we're really upping the stakes here because here this is the man who destroyed the universe. So we've gone from selling the world to destroying the universe. That's a big step for our favorite green skinned blonde Patrick. So and
As you said, this was one of my first two Legion comic books. There are definitely issues with the plot, as we spoke about in our first episode regarding this arc. But the artwork is just incredible. And Brainiac 5, just to catch the listeners up, all three of them, he's a raving lunatic. He's intent on destroying the universe. He's already murdered an innocent woman, apparently. And then he's created this monster called Omega that's the living embodiment of all the hatred in the universe, which, of course, we can all relate to that. And Yeah, so he feels unappreciated for having saved the universe along with the Legion in the past, so he's set his mind to destroying it. And then he gives this crazy monologue at the beginning of this, and then does the villain collapse, which I just love. The body placement in these panels, the close up on his face. It really it's already worth the price of admission, as you say.
Yeah, it's so melodramatic. I love it so much. I love the fact that he's really combating. He's right up there with Vibe as far as crazy breakdancing maneuvers go in the bottom panels there. Just loving every minute of it. The megalomaniac stuff is great. And what more? Just great postures, just great stuff. He's almost his pouch adjacent. So we're at like 3 milli Liefelds here as far as costumes are going. So this just has everything that anyone would ever want in a comic. And now we're going to get into it. And also, Patrick, is just quietly the genesis of what would become Onslaught. So, Age of Apocalypse and Onslaught in the mid 1990s for the X-Men was where Charles Xavier's bad part of his personality became manifest. I think we've got the seeds of this right here, and I think we maybe could get we could shake down Marvel for a lawsuit and try and get Levitt's DC and Steve Apollo, or AKA Jim Starlin, some cash.
I actually, thankfully, I think that they sort of left this in the ditch, which I'm glad for. It's a bit startling, as we spoke about in the last episode, how they could have, a long time beloved, foundational, if not founding, because he's not a founder of the Legion, but was one of the first characters, a very prominently used character throughout the Silver Age and beyond. And they make him a murderer and then a would-be universe destroyer. Spoiler alert: the universe wasn't destroyed, just in case anybody was wondering. And they kind of just drop it. They say, oh, he was insane. He comes back to active duty in a few months. And even though Levitz is the person who did the dialogue, and then he went on his super long run in the 80s, we never really get proper resolution on how this was all just kind of glossed over, papered over, if you will. Now, yes, Brainiac has descended into madness since. He's sort of annoyed his compatriots. He's blown up the headquarters. He's done things, but nothing that amounted to murder or attempted universe slaughter. So,
So before we get back into the action, let's just go back to Brainiac 5 because I just want to mention maybe all of that medical equipment that he's developing, he could do a scan on himself to figure out like why he's collapsing, firstly, because that's probably not, firstly, not good. And then secondly, maybe we can find some lesions to explain some of this like mental catastrophe that he keeps going through. So he's got all this equipment in the world. Maybe just physician heal thyself. Shine those lights on him for
I never thought this, but is it possible that they thought that it was all explained away sufficiently by this one line that Karate Kid delivers that it must be some kind of fever? So he got a fever, he murdered some chick, he tried to destroy the universe. Yeah, like cut him a break. He had a fever.
the COVID defense. My sinuses are real inflamed. I was like looking out windows, feeling sad, runny nose.
You thought I was bad with all my injuries and my old man itis, but I never murdered anyone,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
as
Well,
far as we
Patrick,
know.
you've got the perfect opportunity now. You can really
It's
go
now
to
I have an
town.
excuse.
Yeah, it just seems strange to me. Although I do like his real, yeah, I can't get enough of that joker face. Anyway, this is what everyone is paying the big bucks to Jim Starlin for, to deliver some space action, and you know, message delivered loud and clear, Patrick, in these panels. Just fantastic animations. Just it's not a super highfalutin. It's just clever.
hmm use interesting and accurate usage of Ultra Boy's powers. Of course, everybody, Ultra Boy also huge following as far as Legionnaires go. We were talking about Wildfire's huge fan base. Ultra Boy's another very, very popular Legionnaire. Awesome costume, one of the things that people always love about him. But yeah, these panels have so much dynamicism and movement and kinetic energy. Of course, they're destined to fail. Sadly, Omega will not be brought down by anyone like Ultra Boy. And interestingly, as I mentioned in the previous episode, Superboy doesn't really do much in this issue. And as we had discussed off panel, the Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes title will convert to merely the Legion of Superheroes in a mere 8 issues. So in 259, we have a tearful Superboy flying back into the past, forever, but not really forever. And the title is taken over officially by the Legion. So this may have been sort of maybe a test run or a foreshadowing of what they had planned for the title, which was Superboy needs to go back to the past and the Legion needs to stand on their own.
Yeah, contractual obligations hurt us all, Patrick. So you know, uh, finally, someone has decided to give Brainiac 5 the medical care that he needs. Although, if I woke up from some sort of coma and had a facial expression like the one on the second last panel there, I think people would pretty quickly put me back on the pethidine. Just
Medically induced coma is what I would prescribe.
yeah. But I just thought this is where we get the light and the shade, and not everyone can do it. A lot of people can draw dark, moody, morose Batman, but also not be no good at Archie comics. It seems like Jim Starlin with his cosmical stuff and his Captain Marvel and all of those things and Warlock and Adam Strange and all this stuff. But he can also do these scenes really, really effectively. We've seen it with the breakdancing, and now we see it with the acting on the faces here. And great body language. Just I just wanted to show this panel because it's kind of he's got a little bit of everything. And I don't know if I've seen Wildfire's mask reflections done as well as what we see Jim Starlin do. He's really using that as a way to like
Mhm.
give you dialogue from one character, but sort of show the reaction shot of what Brainiac 5 is just looking like there. And you can kind of see just non Copus Menti comes to mind, Patrick.
Oh yeah, the madness is really well portrayed just in the facial expressions. Yeah, again, just like you said, it's just great. Again, we have the computer bank that is very Starlin-esque in the background, which I always loved then, still love to this day. And we finally also sort of have a motivation, right? Or I guess what a demand from Brainiac 5. He wants to destroy the universe, but as we spoke about before, that will also destroy him. So finally, he says, "You know what? I won't destroy the universe, but you just have to let me rule it." So of course, we're just going to say, "Yeah, we're going to let you rule it." Pat him on the back, and then say, "Help us out of this predicament that you've put us in."
Yeah, it's kind of fun comic book stuff. Speaking of fun comic book stuff, how's this for an animation? Like just some people just have it, right? Like they just have that ability to convey the absolute absurd. And this is Colossal Boy here with a beautiful pirate boot. Just yeah. So to cut a long story short, Omega has gotten to the big metropolis, and now he's just running amok. And all of the Legion, all of the Legionnaires are trying their best to stop him. Monel couldn't do it. Superboy checked out. Jonah or Ultra Boy had a crack. He tried an uppercut to the chest, which didn't really do anything.
No.
Um, Colossal Boy is doing his best to earn a red card, although I wouldn't play sport, especially soccer, with a nice little Chelsea boot like that. Probably slip over on the grass.
Looks like a
Yeah,
bit of a slouch boot maybe there. He might hurt
the,
his ankle
the,
too.
the
But yeah, no,
Cuban
it's very
the
well
Cuban
done.
heel.
Yes,
Um,
it's very well done. It's very 70s.
Yeah. I hope that the Beatles got a little royalty from the type of footwear used there. Um, but this is once again just establishing a scene. We're in Metropolis. We've now cutting back into these conversations, and they're not trivial conversations. They're actually propelling the plot. A lot of a lot of the conversations that we see in the 70s and less so in the 80s is the conversation explains the plot.
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas here, the conversation drives the emotion, which explains why we'd care about the plot in the first place. So, although we've got some problems with what is going on and the characterization, I've never doubted the sort of like sincerity or the ease at which this dialogue actually kind of propels this care and concern that the Legion has for Brainiac and Brainiac's kind of like meltdown, for want of a better word. And who should it be in that right hand panel, Patrick?
But
Who's
Matter
that?
Eater Lad is suddenly here. Brainiac
Um,
demanded that he come back from Bismol, his home planet where he has been serving, I think, as a senator. I think he had already left the Legion and gone to Bismol to be a senator. He was drafted. And also, I wanted to mention that maybe this is where the backup artist is starting to work because, I just mentioned the computer panels in the other one. These computer panels are not Starlin-esque, they're more Kirby-esque for
yeah,
me.
this is a beatbox here. This is a tape.
It
The
actually
top is a
is.
tape deck, and it's just traced around.
But it definitely looks it's reading more Jack Kirby now. And if you look at the faces in the bottom left-hand panel, those don't really look Starlin-esque either. So I'm wondering if the finishing artist is starting to put in the backgrounds. Now, back to the actual things that are, I think, probably are still Starlin. The postures in the first panel
Yeah,
all
yeah,
are very interesting, and they definitely are reading a Starlin, the bend of the leg. Um, the other thing you were talking about the plot, or excuse me, the dialogue really serving the plot. Also think that the choices that are made in the panels are also really pushing the plot forward. There's so much variety on this page in each panel, and I especially love the last one where we see the two heroes from the back running off with the boot in the foreground. That's just really it's really well done.
yeah. That's Dave Cockrum to me. Like he does that foot level panel of everybody, and then you see the stuff like in the background is actually what most people would put in the foreground. Kind of really makes it fun, and it makes it the scene look so deep because otherwise you've got these
Mhm.
talking heads side by side, same depth, and then here you've got this beautiful long sort of thing. So just to cut a long story short, Patrick, Omega, what's our list of people that he's seen off? Superboy, Monel, Giant Guy, Colossal Boy.
Colossal Boy,
Uh,
Ultra Boy, Dawnstar.
oh yeah, Dawnstar. Yeah.
Um, Wildfire's getting ready to, well,
Oh,
okay. I was
Crush.
gonna say Wildfire's getting ready to take his shot, and here he already has. He basically opens his visor and blows up the entire Legion complex, and basically takes himself out as well. Excuse me. And I don't know if that's ever happened. That's a that's a tarnished bronze first.
Yeah, we this none of this will be edited out, by the way.
And Omega is still standing strong. So they've not even really slowed this guy down. As I said in the previous issue, he's traveled from the Andromeda galaxy. I don't really know exactly why Brainiac 5 created him in Andromeda only to walk across the universe to come to the Milky Way, but he did. And he's finally made it back to his creator. Side note, we didn't speak about this off panel, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. Brainiac 5 has created a monster not dissimilar to Dr. Victor Frankenstein, which I just saw the new Frankenstein movie last night. That was came out on Netflix, I guess, in October. It was in a local theater, kind of an art
Oh,
film
nice.
house that's here where I live, and it's excellent. It's really really well done, but they start playing a little bit with these sort of father son tropes, creator creation. They don't really go so far as to sort of dredge up Frankenstein, which is an excellent, amazing piece of literature. If you haven't read it, kids, go out and grab a copy of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's very, very good. Or watch the movie. But yeah, here we have the creation facing his creator, and Brainiac 5 says, "I've given you life, and now I'm going to take it from you."
And just as a little aside, we've covered 5 years later on the channel. You can see the future and the past of 5 years later on our playlist there. That weight of garment that Brainiac 5 is very reminiscent of the late Levitz era, 5 years later era uniforms that everyone would be wearing. So you saw it here first, Jim Starlin designing probably the most maligned era of Brainiac costume. Just the weight of the garment seems very similar to those oversized sort of boiler suits that we see in the 5 years later era, which Patrick is trying to black out from his mind.
Yeah,
But I'm
I
just
actually really like that neckline, though. I
I,
will
I
say
do.
that.
I like the weight of it. It just looks much nicer in a if everyone is color coded, so that Brainiac still has his same. The colors of his outfit are all correct as far as his quote unquote costume,
Yeah.
which I like much better than everyone wearing the white NASA suit. Even though in real life, if we were all a team, we would probably be wearing a team outfit.
But yeah, it wouldn't be so bad to have some insignia. But we have to serve the reader and we have to serve the storyteller. And I really feel like we won't get into that because we still have issues of 5 years later to cover, to my chagrin. Uh, the reread was not as special as I thought it would be. Um, but yeah, it got confusing even for me to kind of tell who was who with Giffen's kind of messier art. But anyway, we digress. Here we see Omega is facing his final end. Again,
So
these
Patrick,
drawings, the close up as it gets closer
yeah,
and closer to
just
Mr. DeMille, it's very good.
Um, Frankenstein is played in the movie by the world's most beautiful man. Is the world's most beautiful man going to be starring as Omega anytime soon?
Yeah, you know what? I beg to defer on that and differ. But that we'll take that conversation offline, as we
Okay,
say in the computer biz. Um, but yeah, I don't know. He'll probably be CGI. I'm thinking more of a Josh Brolin, maybe because
okay, yeah,
Omega's a
someone with a
bit
bit,
Thanos
yeah,
coded.
yeah,
But yeah, he disappears into a puff of yellow sulfurish smoke, I can only assume. And seeing Timberwolf and Karate Kid run up from the back, can you just see the movement in that panel without it being telegraphed with lines or anything? It's just very something that you'd see on TV as Brainiac looks over the remnants of, his creation.
yeah. To cut a long story short, I really like these two issues. I kind of don't care that we have our fever dream murder. Um, I just am along for the ride for the Omega, kind of like Nightfall, where that series where Batman battles all the Rogues Gallery. We've got Omega doing his Nightfall or his like dark, is it dark? Not Dark Side, Doomsday impression where he battles all of the heroes along the way. I really love that. I like the fact that it's 2 episodes in an era where 2 issues was like you had to make something really special. This delivers. Jim Starlin does great stuff. I hope we'll see more new work from him at some point. Yeah, just really love this. I like the world that Starlin lets the characters inhabit, and this final sort of panel, just the facial expression, that slight upshot where you see the heroes sort of projection, just magical stuff. As a kid, it's just a great read. As an adult, there's a lot going on in this, and there's just so much to enjoy. Um, I I know that the Legion is sort of up and down in this era, but this is kind of a real up for me.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah,
glad you have the next one. I was going to say, please tell me that you have, as a kid, first of all, in the previous page, I love the Omega's eyes Oh, they really pop, as the kids might say. I don't know. Do kids say that? But yeah, this panel of Brainiac tending to a matter eater lad who has devoured the miracle machine and has now completely gone. If you thought Brainiac 5 was crazy, Matter Eater Lad has completely gone crazy. The articulation of his fingers and his arms, the way he's sitting
Yeah, I
with the
don't even
remnants
know.
of the Miracle Machine. I just love that as a kid, still really love it. Again, Brainiac's posture, it reads very Starlin-esque to me. Just he has a certain way of um, turning and twisting bodies. And then the next panel where his eyes are sort of cosmic in a way that kind of mirrors Starboy's costume in a way, with Brainiac's sort of maniacal visage in the background. Those two panels were just great for me as a kid.
Yeah, yeah, and you've got to do the light and the shade, and the character moments are also shining in this saga. And then we have Superboy, aka Superboy Prime, aka Young Clark Kent, aka Superboy Earth One.
Earth One,
Yeah,
Superboy at this time.
yeah.
Now, retroactively, he's Superboy Prime.
So
They're discussing the fact that Metropolis has been destroyed, the headquarters has been destroyed. Now, I don't know if this was a setup to get a new headquarters, because Levitz does eventually introduce a new headquarters. Matter Eater Lad, I mean, really, this denouement is just, we have just a mess. And a lot of this stuff isn't directly addressed on panel. Matter Eater Lad does get cured of his insanity. Brainiac 5
does
returns to
he?
active duty in a span of a few issues, even though he is a confessed murderer of an innocent woman and tried to destroy the universe and in the process destroyed a lot of Metropolis. But he had a fever. So, I mean,
Yeah,
when a man has a fever, you've heard
yeah,
this, right? Is it called man flu?
yeah,
When a man has a fever, you don't know what he's going to do. He might destroy the universe. Like, just let him lay, give him some soup, you know, strap him down.
yeah, yeah. Maybe they could use that nice table tennis table to just, lay him out and get it sweated out of him. Um, Patrick,
I
great
probably should
stuff.
have read postscript to Holocaust, but like I said, I don't really remember stuff being super addressed. Maybe it was addressed more than I'm giving it credit. Maybe I should have done my homework and read it.
So, inverted rocket ship, Legion Headquarters 1, the
Yes.
L shaped building, Legion Headquarters 2,
Yes.
and then
That's
we're
this
going to,
one that was blown up.
yeah, but
The
then there's
next
some,
one is very Star Wars-esque, where it's
okay,
kind of like a horseshoe on its side, supported by a very small sort of plinth in the middle. Is that the right word?
yeah. And so then there's later on, we'll get the Art Deco looking building. The Keith Giffen sort of makes it look a bit like it has the
Oh,
Art
yeah.
Deco stuff going on.
The next one that I'm thinking of has the large sort of portal. It almost looks like a gemstone in the middle, and it has two large wings. It's very, to me, it's very Star Trek, kind of
Okay,
like a Star Trek ship almost.
all right.
Not the Enterprise, but like later Star Trek ships.
Well, Patrick, every single time that we mention some other uh, headquarters of the Legion of Superheroes, I think our audience halves. So for anyone who is still sticking around for all of this discussion about headquarters without us actually showing you any pictures of these aforementioned
Google it.
headquarters, we thank you. That was Jim Starlin's part two of his Legion. I would have signed up for more. I'm just happy that exists. I'm not sorry it's over.
We
Patrick, we're
should
gonna
mention that we are very lucky that Jim Shooter wasn't in charge of DC at this time because based on how Jean Grey and Phoenix was handled, this would not have flown at Marvel at the time, or I guess maybe a few years later. So otherwise, a great character like Brainiac 5 could have been completely ruined and derailed. Even though we enjoyed the story, and I'm really glad it was told, the ramifications I think could have been treated a lot more seriously than they were, and I think I'm glad that they just papered over it and moved on, to be
so
honest.
maybe once we get more professional, I mean, this isn't a profession, but I think going forward for some of these types of issues, because we have the issues, we can look 6 months into the future and look at the letters columns and see the
Mm,
contemporary response. Because I'm thinking about that for a few of the things that we've got in the pipeline. The contemporary response for some of these things is very strange considering our response right now. I'm imagining that the contemporary response to this is going to be this Steve Apollo guy. What an asshole. Absolutely hate him. He's ruining Brainiac. I love Brainiac. Right
I
now,
totally agree. Also, in doing that, we could also see what the next issue actually, sometimes when I get these assignments, I actually do sort of more hefty homework. These I knew so much about these issues. I just read them. It was fun. I was going to write my notes. It was
yeah,
great. And I didn't really think, like you said in the previous episode, th- this woman was murdered. Was that done on panel? Oh, I don't know. Maybe I should
yeah.
have read that. And then I'm actually very curious. I had forgotten that the next issue was called whatever, Aftermath of the Holocaust or whatever. I mean, God, that's serious. But
Yeah.
I'm actually wondering because, like I said, I feel pretty confident that a lot of this, it may have been kind of that may have been when they glossed over it. It's not like they really delved into it and explained it away so that it was satisfactory. I do remember that much from having read it.
And one of the greatest things about the letter column is the editorial has the ability to choose whatever letters they want to see published. And I might have been talking to you about a different episode, but some of these comics, they're choosing to
Hmm.
actually, this is, I've been
5 years later.
rereading the Hawk World series,
Oh,
which is like
oh.
88 to 90. And I noticed that everyone is just absolutely agog that Shayera and Carter Hall, the Hawkman and Hawkwoman, uh, they're basically coming from a post-apocalyptic sort of Thanagar as opposed to the technological paradise Thanagar. Editorial is running letter after letter, hating, hating, hating on it, and I'm like, you can choose to print letters that actually are
You
liking this
wonder,
story.
did they not get any positive letters? Because you have to think too. Surely there were, so I will say that. But at the same time, even then, but definitely now, when you have something negative to say, it's much more of an impetus and a motivating factor to write
Yeah,
in than if you're like, oh, everything was wonderful. Let me give you your flowers and take this time and buy a stamp and go to the post office, whatever. Whereas if you're pissed off about something, you're definitely much more likely to write. We noted the same thing. I thought you were going to go to 5 years later,
yeah,
right? Because those were so interesting because they chose to print negative and there were positive
yeah.
ones too. But the negative ones that they reacted to, they were so defensive, and it was almost like, why are you bothering to, if you think that this has no merit and you're so defensive in your reaction to it, why bother printing it in the first place?
Yeah. So we will be around later for some more Legion content, which is not the concept isn't the problem. I think the Legion 5 years later is the execution, and we'll be there for the denouement of the first sort of year of storylines, basically the end of Keith Giffen's kind of tenure there. And so that will probably, or halfway through maybe his tenure. Um, that
Where are
will
we going to
probably,
rank this?
oh, actually, yeah. So we have to rank if
I
we
already
can.
know where I want to put it. That's why I brought
Okay,
it up.
so why don't you open the bidding then?
So I think that because of the characterizations and the complete changeover of the JLA Annual 2 Detroit JLA introduction is still better than this. Just does a lot more heavy lifting, and the art is so beautiful. On a par with
Yeah,
Keith Giffen. Keith
yeah,
Giffen. I mean, no, excuse me. Well, on a par with
yeah,
Keith Giffen. Also on a par with Jim Starlin, who's probably one of my favorite comic book creators. I wrote him one of my sets of notes maybe better than Burn for me. I mean, they're super close. I love them both so much as we've talked about ad nauseum on the channel. But for me, it's Sophie's choice between those
yeah,
two. But I really thought it's Chuck Patton, right? Chuck Patton does. I also loved Hoberg's work on JLA, but Chuck Patton, I think, does the Legion Annual too. I still think that's better. I would slate this in right under that, though.
yeah,
Even though, like we said, there are definitely issues with the small details in the art, but that can be forgiven a little bit because it's the Legion. It's so hard to keep up with, especially if you're just jumping in to do a two-issue jaunt. And the way Brainiac 5 is treated for his past and future characterization is maybe a little problematic. It's a great story. It's really fun to read. It's well drawn. It has a sort of a beginning, middle, and end, and it hits all the buttons for me. So I would put it right under JLA 2, Annual
Yeah,
2.
I'm pretty happy with that. I'm reading this like goldfish, rating it 9 out of 10. Like if I,
Oh,
in the absence of other things going on, so I would maybe even push for it to be higher. But I can see how Justice League of America Annual 2 did more stuff that had more consequence. This is
hmm.
just, hey, Jim Starlin's going nuts, Brainiac's going nuts, and we've got a huge beatdown with Omega. Fantastic stuff. So
Yeah.
everyone, like, follow, subscribe. You heard it here. Patrick and I are trying to push the value of issue 251 to the max so he can cash in on his
Yes.
Whitman comics. So if
But
you,
I want to get a backup copy before those prices go up. So if y'all could give me a couple of hours, then I'm
yeah,
good.
get on, so everyone get on the eBays, try and make sure that we push this up from being a comic that's worth more than 75 cents. I think we can push it beyond the dollar bin if we all try our hardest. So Patrick and I will be here with you later with some more Bronze Age content. Patrick, always a pleasure, and we will see everyone in the next episode.